Hey, everybody, we're back. We are back. Hold on a second. All right, all right. So we're back. We are back, the Openly Occultic Book Club. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. Um, as you may have heard, I've had some technical troubles today, right? I've tried going live a few times. I got cut off. I've just gone through troubles today. And but I truly would rather be nowhere but here with you guys, reading these books, going over what we're learning and discovering. And I want to do it live because I want us to meet up in real time, right? Reading and discovering these things, processing them, talking about them in the chat room. I'm really all about in person as much as possible, in real time discovery. So I'm back here with you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. For the people that have been here riding with me through all this, through these technical challenges as we try to get it right here, with the book, with the Openly Occultic Book Club and podcast and what have you. For those of you that have been riding with me, I really want you to make yourself known. Make sure to leave a comment, either live or in the comment section. Let me know you're riding with me from this point. Because later on in the future, when everything is running smoothly and more people are tuning in and subscribing and commenting and are here, I want to remember you. Those of you that were with me through the struggle, you know what I mean? As we built this channel, I want to remember you. I want you to be remembered. And of course, you'll be thanked in many ways, more, quicker access. You'll get access before other people when we start rolling those type of things out. You'll get discounts to the Cedar Grove Herbs website, right? Herbs, Metaphysicals, other books. So I just need you to go ahead and let yourself be known so that I'll remember you when there's, at a later date. I'll know that you were here through this part of time with me because I know I'm a YouTubian myself. And if what I love about watching some of these content creators, teachers, edifiers, historians, archaeologists, just really digging into the YouTube university scene, what I like is when somebody can put together a good presentation and they have a command of their technology at the same time. You know what I mean? So I know that it can be a struggle to even sit through these videos with me live with all the technical problems. But if you have, I want to thank you for being here. And I don't want to just say it. I want to, give you some offerings, right? So yeah, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. In just a minute, we're going to get back into this book. I think one issue might have been that video that we have for the background with the universe, the solar system, the stars, and what have you. So I switched it up to just a image, not a video. So that might be better for us, right? We might have a better time here with that and not buffer so much. So welcome everybody to the Openly Occultic Book Club. We're reading about Melchizedek and the mystery of fire, right? We're reading about Melchizedek and the mystery of fire. Um, hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed we are. So, and what happened was earlier when because we were just getting into section 1. I said we were just going to read the introduction, but because of all the pushback, I say, that gives me fire. It makes me not want to give up. So I said, bump it. We'll probably end up reading the whole book. So we're into section 1. There's only 3 sections. The book is only 54 pages long. So we shouldn't have any problems. Let me know if there's any glitching. Leave a comment. Let me know if you can hear me. Press 1 if you can hear me. If there's glitching, let me know. But everything should be set. It should be fine now. What happened was they kicked us off the first time because before reading the book, I said, well, what we need to do actually is we need to go ahead and look into who Melchizedek is, who Manly P. Hall is, right? We said, let's do a little light research before we jump into this book. Let's see let's learn whose words we're reading, right? And who's Melchizedek, right? So what we did was we jumped on Google. You could see all this on the first live video today. Today being March 12th. You can see it on the first live. Our second book of the book club. And so in researching, we were learning about Manly P. Hall and his first wife, and I ended up saying a word that made them freeze my video. The audio kept going, or maybe for about another few minutes, 15 minutes, but the video was stopped. So, and the word was, when you take your own life, that word that starts with an S. So for future 2 lives, we made the decision to censor ourselves, right? Try to steer clear of words that might stop the stream, right? And then, of course, we acknowledge that this is a difficult topic. We understand there's an external war going on outside. What we came to find out in reading the wiki page on Manly Hall and just looking up, reading the wiki page, what we came to find out was a lot of these occultic books are discussing, that's because we looked up the book itself. Yeah, we didn't just look up Manly P. Hall. We looked up the book itself. We said, let's look it up. Let's go to Amazon. Let's go to the Philosophical Society that Manly P. Hall formed. So in doing all this, I got kicked off for using that one word. And then we kind of made it back for a second time. Or I was trying to, but I was having problems there. But we made it back again, and we had a good stream for a good about hour and 40 minutes or so. Then it locked up again at the end, and it locked up when we were talking about, here, we're on the book right now. Let me scroll up to where it locked up. It's just another paragraph up. We were talking about Hercules. The Demerge, talking about how the sun, because we were talking about Hercules, and Hercules, like a whole lot of other names we read, is talking about light and fire. So we have this whole list of names, right? I'm not going to read it again. I don't know who got triggered over what, but we read that, and then we read that these deities were symbolic. We read that before we even got to the names. But we read all this. You can read it. It said later, it said man personified. I'm sorry. It said that man personified the elements and created all these deities, right? And these pantheons. And then we got to, it was talking about those different names and how these names are all basically talking about a sun god or a god of light. All of them. Which means they're wrestling with this idea of taking the Bible and the scriptures and these stories literal or taking them as allegories. Coded language describing how the body works, actually, in fact. So we read that. We got to the Greek mysteries. We got to Hercules. I did a little Googling because we wanted to get to the root. and the etymology behind the word Hercules, but they're saying same thing. We're talking about a sun god, right? And just when we got to the occult philosophy and we started reading this section that I'm about to reread right now, just to see if it happens again, right? Always testing the system. But when we got here to this part is where it froze up. You know, it froze up before that. It froze up while we were talking about Hercules. I didn't know it was frozen. I came back after Hercules and kept reading, and it just stayed frozen. And then it kicked me off when I got to this part right here. All this. You know what I mean? All here. So we'll reread it real quick. We'll just start right here according to occult philosophy. Right? We'll get back to it, picking right back up where we were at. Right? And for those of you who are tuned in, I want to make sure that you remember we need to get these likes up, right? I think we need to get these likes up. So I want you to do me a favor. Hit that like button. Let's share this video. Let's make sure all our friends who are in religion and who are very concerned about this external war, let's get them here on the live, right? We want them to know there's an internal battle. And this is actually what these scriptures are saying. This is an alternate perspective, right? An alternate theory. And we don't have a problem reading it at the very least. That don't mean we believe it, but we don't have a problem reading it and talking about it intelligently, right? Hey, you know, so we are the Openly Occultic Book Club, right? We're the Openly Occultic Book Club. So a lot of the things that were hidden, we want to be open. We don't want them to be hidden, right? So we understand we're in the age of Aquarius now. We get that part as well. We know that the assignment for us is to raise the vibration. That's what we know to be true here. The assignment is to raise your vibration. So we're looking into it, right? And here we are. We must be in the right place. This is the Openly Occultic Book Club, and we're talking about the occult. According to occult philosophy, the sun in reality is a threefold orb, two parts of its nature being invisible, right? So we're only seeing 1/3 of the sun, according to what's being written here. And he says, according to occult philosophy. So according to hidden philosophy, the sun in reality is a threefold orb, but we can only see 1/3 of it. 2/3 of it is invisible. The globe, which we see, is merely the lowest phase of the solar nature and is the body of the Demerges, or as some people call him, Jehovah. And then Brahmins call him Shiva. Right? So these words, this Shiva, this Jehovah, the sun, these words all mean the same thing, is what he's saying. And it's the lowest phase of the solar nature when we say sun, because there's the hidden parts that we can't see. Okay. The sun being symbolized by an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangle. The three powers of the solar disk are said to be co-equal. So we only see one part of it, but there's two other parts. All three are equal. Hence the equal shaped triangle, right? All three sides equal. The three phases of the sun are called will, wisdom, and action. Will is related to the principle of life. Wisdom to the principle of light, and action or friction to the principle of heat. By will, and will being related to the principle of life, by will the heavens were created, and the eternal life continued in supreme existence. A lot of words here. A lot of words being said. Because it's basically saying humans are supreme existence, huh? Life on earth being supreme existence. By will the heavens were created, and the eternal life continued in supreme existence. So in heaven, maybe. And then it goes on to say, by action, friction, and striving, the earth was formed, and the physical earth molded by the lords of the fire mist and and the physical universe molded by the lords of the fire mist passed gradually from its molten condition into its present and more orderly state. I don't know why I stumbled over it. I mean, I see it. So I've been drinking my tea, relaxing, because, I try to not be in that, state that it was like I was being put into by just things just not going how I wanted to. So I tried to take a break. I took a break, and I relaxed and meditated, calmed my mind. But this is the first thought I had. Once my mind was calm, this was the thought I had, which made me want to get right back on here. Because this is where it froze up. Because I said, we were reading, it says, thus heaven and nature were formed, but between these two was a great void, for God did not comprehend nature, and nature did not comprehend the deity. And I'm just like, nah, I don't believe that. And whatever he's saying, for some reason, he's putting a distance between God and nature, right? Mother Nature? So no. And I mean, I knew it then when we read it that I disagree with what was being said. I think I even said it, but it really, I'm glad the live stopped so we could let that sit in the air, actually. Because what are we saying here? God didn't know nature. Nature don't know God. What are we talking about? I disagree with this premise right here. And so I'm glad, and I had to come back so I could at least put that on the record. I say cap to that. But anyway, be that as it may, we're just a book club. We're just reading the books, right? And we can, of course, meet in the CGH Openly Occultic Book Club chat room to discuss this offline 24 hours a day. So, thus heaven and nature were formed, but between these two was a great void. A void between heaven and nature. Can you, what? But between these two was a great void, for God did not comprehend nature, and nature did not comprehend the deity. The lack of intercourse between these two spheres of consciousness was similar to the condition of someone with paralysis, right? In which the consciousness realizes the condition of the body, but owing to the lack of nerve connection, it is incapable of governing or directing the activities of the body. Therefore, between life and action, there came a mediator, which was called light or intelligence. Light partakes of both life and action. It is the sphere of blending. Intelligence stood between heaven and earth, for through its medium, man learned of the existence of his God, and God began his ministration to the needs of men. While both life and action were simple substances, Light was a compound, for the invisible part of light was of the nature of heaven, and the visible part of the nature of earth. Okay. All right. Down through the ages, this light is said to have taken upon itself bodies. Although these bodies have borne witness to that light, the great spiritual truth behind the symbol of the embodied light is that in the soul of every creature within whose mind intelligence is born, there dwells a spirit which assumes the nature of this intelligence. Every truly intelligent man and woman who is working to spread light in the world is Christianed or lightened, Christ-end, or lightened by the actual labor which he or she is seeking to perform. The fact that light or intelligence partakes of the natures of both God and the earth is proved by the names given to the personifications of this light. For at one time they're called the sons of men, and at another time the sons of God. So we're talking about light, light being intelligence, light being in heaven and on earth. It's a medium between heavenly things or unseen things and earthborn things, things that are manifest here. You know what I mean? So everything here is just one part of it at the very least, because we're more than what meets the eye. Hey, right? We're more than what meets the eye. Yes. Okay, so the unseen light. What unseen light? X-rays. We can't see X-rays. The machine can detect it. And I think that's lower on the electromagnetic frequency spectrum than higher. Higher would be UV ray lights, gamma ray lights, right? That would be higher outside of our visible light spectrum, the light that we can see as humans, right? That would be higher. UV ray lights, gamma ray lights, things like that. Lower would be microwaves, right? Radio frequencies, I think. Definitely microwaves. So there's levels to this. Light. There's high and low vibrational light. There's high vibrational light we can't see and low vibrational light that we can't see. So there's that. All right. So let me know. Put a 1 in the room, put a 1 in the chat. Let me know if you understand what I'm saying. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it does sound kind of angelic, right? It sounds angelic. But what's angelic, though? Is angelic a new word? What was the word we used before angel? That's English. You're speaking English words, right? We speak in English words. Angelic is an English word. So, but angles, right? And angel is angle. Angle of light. I'm just excited to have somebody here. My live is going well and I ain't been kicked off yet. Somebody's interacting. Thank you for being here. Right? I appreciate you guys. But absolutely, angel of light, angle of light, for sure. All right, so yeah, light, intelligence, facts. The initiate in the mysteries was always instructed concerning the existence of 3 suns. I hope you guys caught the first live that I tried today. We read the introduction and we read about these initiates and the mysteries and what all they had to go through to get this wisdom, right? So, yeah, the initiate in the mysteries. And that came up in the story of Prometheus with the fire and Hercules. Because Hercules saved Prometheus, who was chained up like Lucifer. These are Greek stories. Before the Bible and Jesus, I don't know. These are Greek stories. And so the in this Greek story, Hercules would be the initiate. And Prometheus, or what's his name, with the fire and all that. Yeah, all that is all together And we read it. It's in the first video from today, so you can check that out. So, as it says the initiate in the mysteries was always instructed concerning the existence of three sons. The first of which, the vehicle for God the Father, enlightened and warmed his spirit. The second, the vehicle of God the Son, unfolded and broadened his mind. The third, the vehicle of God the Holy Spirit, nourished and strengthened his body. Light is not only a physical element, it's also a mental and spiritual element. And in the temple, the disciple is told to revere the invisible sun even more than the visible one. What temple? Manly P. Hall, the author of this book, is a Freemason. He's a 33rd degree Scottish Freemason at that. He's talking about the Masonic temple. He told us in the beginning, in the introduction, he was explaining a little bit about the temple in Freemasonry. He said there's two things going on. First of all, in Masonry is the speculative Masonry. And then, I think there was, what the word he used? Basically a word to signify objectifying, making it, not just hearing about it, but making it part of your life. So the speculative part of Freemasonry, or the temple, right? The Masonic temple is, in general, it's everything, the way it's shaped, everything about the temple is saying, he was saying in the opening, in the introduction, is the human body, or, the human organism. So even if you don't know all the deeper mysteries that a 33rd degree Mason would know, just from the beginning, I'm sure just 1, 2, and 3 degrees before you become a 3rd degree Mason, in general, you're just there speculating, looking, and just kind of seeing if that's something you want to be involved in. And in general, a mystery is already there for you. Can you perceive it? Right? So he said all that. So when he says here, light is not only a physical element, it's also a mental and spiritual element. And in the temple, the disciple is told to revere the invisible sun even more than the visible one. He's saying they're doing this in the Mason temples too, but the ancient, because the Masons are doing what the ancients were doing, carrying out these rituals and these dramas that are really symbolic of what's going on with the human body. That's what it said. We looked up the book. We haven't read the book yet, but we looked it up. What was the book about? And that's what it said on Amazon. So we have to contend with something while we're reading this. We're being told on one hand to take the Bible literal. There's war going outside right now because it's a lot of people that think we're supposed to be taking this book literal. And then we're being told in occultic books, books that were hidden from us, books that the Masons and the higher ups in this world read, and with the ideas that they agree on or feel that is true, all this stuff being written about in them religious books are actually metaphors and allegories for how the human body works. What do you guys think about that? I'm gonna go get some water. What do you think about, should we be taking the Bible literally, or should we take it as like a metaphor? Allegories. Coded language covering up how the body works. Excuse me, I'm getting some ice. I need some more water, y'all. Yep, I'm hyped because my live is not messing up. I said, let me try that at a later date, a later time in the day, first of all. And now we got people coming because it's not messing up. And I got some comments, so I appreciate it. I'm excited. And now I'm thirsty. I need some water, right? Okay. What do you guys think about taking it? Well, we'll just keep reading. We'll keep reading, and we'll learn more. How about that? We're on the fence still. We just got into it. Tell me more, because he really hasn't said too much. So tell me more, sir, about this idea. So he says they're told to revere the invisible sun even more than the visible ones, right? Okay. I am still burning says, it's true about the body, as above, so below, I think. All the stories are right and wrong, I think, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, Yeah, you can meet us in the CGH Openly Occultic Book Club, and I'll give you the book for free, this PDF for free. Right? I'm trying to grow a community here. We want our tribe members. I'm looking for my tribe. People that are interested in reading these type of things and talking about it, right? So I'm trying to build a community. So I got a chat room going on the Cedar Grove Herbs website. And you can watch all the other previous book club videos. It'll show you how to get there at the beginning of the video. And you just pop in the chat room and say, hey, can you give me a copy of that book? Can I get a copy? And I will give you a copy. You know? So for free. So it's nothing. So yeah. And thank you. I'm still burning. Thank you for being here. All right. Absolutely. It is how you use the knowledge. Okay, so light is not only a physical element, it's also a mental and spiritual element. And in the temple, the disciple is told to revere the invisible sun, even more than the visible one. For every visible thing is only an effect of the invisible or casual. And as God is the cause of all causes, he dwells in the invisible world of causation. Apelles, when initiated into the mysteries, beheld the sun shining at midnight, for the chambers of the temple were brilliantly illuminated, although there were no lamps of any kind. Is he saying this to tell me to take this literal? Because we're talking about something we literally can't see, right? An invisible sun. Hold on. The invisible sun is not limited by walls, nor even the surface of the earth itself, for its rays, being of higher vibratory rate than physical substance, its light passes unimpeded through all the planes of physical substance. To those capable of seeing the light of these spiritual orbs, there is no darkness, for they dwell in the presence of limitless light, and at midnight see the sun shining under their feet. Boy, I tell you. All right. So, like I said, what are we saying here? All right, because we're talking about invisible light. But he went on to explain. He's talking about people that can see these auras, some of this invisible light spectrum that most of us can't see. Some of us can. Right? Your Reiki masters and aura readers, right? Your psychics, they can pick up on this energy. They can see it, he said. This guy, he said, saw it while he was in the cave, right? Apelles. He saw the sun at midnight. I think that's allegory. Personally, I don't know. But okay. We're going to keep reading. By means of one of the lost arts of antiquity, the priests of the temple were able to manufacture lamps which would burn for centuries without replenishment. The lamps resembled what is commonly called the virgin lamps, or those carried by the Vestal virgins. They were a little smaller than a human hand, and according to available records, their wicks were made of asbestos. So see, it's been maintained that these lamps have burned for 1,000 years or more. This asbestos, one of them was found in the tomb of Christian Rosenkreutz, which had burned for 120 years without the supply of fuel being diminished. It's a lot of magic trick talk going on here. I want the real. We're sitting here being told we shouldn't be taking things literally, but then you know what I'm saying? And it's not magic tricks, that it's actually coded language talking about the human body. This is not magic. This is not an illusion. This is not a mirage. This is not, something mysterious, but then he goes on to give us all these fairy tale stories. Is it me? Let's see. In reading, I often see lights but no sources. Just came up. I think it's in the book. Anna, grandmother of Jesus, also. Mm-hmm. Lights but no source. In real life, have you seen a light without source? I'm just, because we're, like I said, I see what's going on here. On one hand, we're being told this book is a bunch of allegories, coded language, symbols to hide a hidden truth that is probably a remedy, right? We looked up this because when we were looking up Hercules, we had to look at the etymology of Herc or Heru or whatever, and Cules and Hecca. It was Hecca and Cles. We looked all this up. And so I say that to say, on one hand, like I said, we're dealing with allegories and symbolism. And then on the other hand, we're being told it's not literal, don't take it literal. But then he's giving me stories of stories, and he's suggesting I take them literal. There was this lamp, little virgin lamp, Vestal virgins. They carried them. They're smaller than a human hand, and their wicks were made of asbestos. They were maintained, these lamps have burned for 1,000 years or more. Where? What lamp burned for 1,000 years or more? Who was there to check the what do we? You think that the fairy tales might come true if the energies rise, as in soul tech? I listen to Seven Bomar quite a lot because I really don't miss the show. He's really talking about spirit tech, you know what I mean, and working on some interesting things. I'm not mad at him. Congratulations. I'm rooting for it. I'm rooting for this. I love this age of Aquarius, this wake up season. You know what I mean? We believe that the goal, the assignment is raise your vibration, right? So yeah. So you're thinking maybe the fairy tales will come true if the energies rise up. Okay. If our consciousness rises up, or the collective conscious energy rises up, going to 5D, going to a different dimension. So he says one of these lamps that don't go out was found in the tomb of Christian Rosicrucius. Was it burning there in the tomb? Which had burned for 120 years without the supply of fuel being diminished. Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like magic tricks. Unless it's secret energy, free energy. It is supposed that these lamps, which incidentally burned in hermetically sealed vaults without the aid of oxygen. So how is fire? Don't fire need? Do we have any firemen in the chat? Any firefighters in the chat? Who amongst us knows about fire? Okay, so this lamp was hermetically sealed in the vault, and it's burning without the aid of oxygen. So he says, so the story goes. And they were so constructed that the heat of the flame extracted from the atmosphere some substance which took the place of the original fuel as rapidly as the mysterious oil was consumed. That's what I'm saying. Because right now it sounds like a magic trick, but if you explain it to me, and I'm thinking we talking some kind of free energy device or something. Am I jumping ahead of myself? I'm excited, y'all. Welcome to the Openly Occultic Book Club. We live, baby. Hargrave Jennings had collected numerous references concerning the times when and places where these lamps have been found. Okay? In the majority of cases, however, they went out shortly after the vaults were opened, or else were broken in some strange way, so the secret was not discovered. Okay. concerning these lamps. So they ain't seen not one lamp burning in the vault. That's what I'm going to take from that. Concerning these lamps, Mr. Jennings writes, the ancient Romans are said to have preserved the lights in their sepulchres many ages by the oiliness of gold. Here steps in the art of Rosicrucians, resolved by hermetic methods into a liquid substance. And it is reported that at the dissolution of monasteries in the time of Henry VIII, there was found a lamp which had then burned in a tomb from about 300 years after Christ, nearly 1,200 years. I still ain't heard proof of anybody seeing this. I just hear hearsay. People saying, yes, somebody said that's what it was. I don't know. Is it me? Two of these subterranean lamps are to be seen in the Museum of Rarities at Leyden in Holland. One of these lamps, in the papacy of Paul III, was found in the tomb of Tulia, so named, Sicaro's daughter, which had been shut up 1,550 years. Okay. Interesting. Madame Blavatsky in Isis Unveiled. We have that book as well in our treasure trove of books. We haven't read it. Hopefully together we'll read that. Madame Blavatsky in Isis Unveiled gives a number of formulae for the making of ever-burning lamps. Okay. And states in a footnote that she herself saw one made by a disciple of the Hermetic arts, which had burned steadily without fuel for 6 years previous to the publication of her book. We're gonna just go in the book and get the recipe, and we'll do it ourselves and see if this is true or not. You know, it sounds like a lot of hearsay to me. A lot of, he said this is what happened, and he's not a liar. That type of stuff. I can't go off of that. So let's get this formula. It's in Isis Unveiled. There's a few recipes formulas she gives for that. And she says she saw one herself, made by a disciple of the Hermetic arts, which had burned steadily without fuel for 6 years previous to the publication of her book. She sat there for 6 years and saw this lamp burning? No, come on. Come on. Because I'm being told not to take these things as fact, but it's all symbolism and allegory, but then I'm constantly giving these hard to believe stories and being told to believe them is true. Well, what's going on? The ever-burning lamp was, of course, a most appropriate symbol of the eternal fire in the universe. And while chemistry has denied the possibility of manufacturing them, the fact that many have been made and seen over a period of thousands of years is a warning against dogmatizing. We should look into this, huh? In our quest for truth. Because it's basically, you were saying, it's some kind of chemical reaction. Something is making, whatever they're using, the lamp is pulling elements out the air to continue to keep it burning without the need for oil, from what I picked up. So, yeah, I'm still burning. She said, he or she, I don't know. I just watched a podcast that claimed the infinite energy devices are already being started up in small communities, like now. Heard that like 2 days ago. It aligns with things I've seen and reading. Facts. You know what I mean? I'm glad to be here. And you guys, I'm glad you're here with me. We are definitely living in an interesting time. And we're getting information, right? We're getting information. And there's greater things to come. We already know that. I want to look into free energy devices. I think I'm gonna go on and get me an electricity certificate right now. Like in the next week, I'm gonna go to the community college, local college, and get me I'm gonna sign up, learn about the AC/DC. I want to learn about the electricity. You know what I mean? With a goal in mind in the future to make some free energy devices, right? So This is interesting. All right. Okay, I'm still burning. Thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. All right. Let's see. In Tibet, the Lama magicians, the Magi, have discovered a system of lighting rooms by means of a luminous ball of phosphorescent greenish white color, which increases in luminosity when ordered to do so by the priest. And after the departure of those who are in the chamber, it gradually becomes fainter until only a spark remains, which burns continuously. Okay. We need to get some chemists in the Openly Occultic Book Club. We want some geneticists, some archaeologists, you know what I mean? Some engineers. Let's go. We want this knowledge, and we want to do something with it. This apparent miracle is no more difficult to explain than another performed by the Tibetans. There is in Tibet a sacred tree which sheds its bark annually. And as the old bark peels off, an inscription written in Tibetan characters is found upon the new bark underneath. See, you keep giving me fairy tales, hard to believe Santa Claus stories, and you want me to take them literal. Is there not a conflict here? Am I tripping? Put a 1 in the chat if you see the conundrum here. This man is telling me that these things written in the Bible are allegories and symbols, all the rituals, everything. It's all about the human body. No real people. No real places. This is all coded. But then he's giving me stories about there being a tree, a sacred tree, some magical tree that sheds its bark annually in Tibet. And as the old bark peels off, magically an inscription is written in Tibetan characters under the new bark. How? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? I am so confused. But I'm not confused. I see what's happening is there's a war going on here. Is it literal or not? These secrets of so-called savage and primitive peoples incessantly refute the ridicule with which Caucasians almost invariably view the culture of other races. Yes, a lot of crazy things being said and done. I got to, take my time and reevaluate. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as we're alive, we're learning. When we keep on living, we'll have more opportunities to learn. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's hard to believe it. I've heard a lot of things that were crazy but true over the years. Truthfully. So, but no, I'm not going with what we just read. I'm not going. I hear you though, sir. The Druid priests in Britain, recognizing the sun as the proxy of the supreme deity, used a ray of solar light to start their altar fires. They did this by concentrating the ray upon a specially cut crystal or aquamarine, right? Like we did with kids as kids with our magnifying glasses, right? I'll set a few ants on fire, a few dry leaves, dry pieces of grass. Okay. Set in the form of a magic brooch or buckle upon the front of the belt of the arch druid. This brooch was called the Leith Mesisith, and was supposed to possess the power of drawing the divine fire of the gods down from heaven and concentrating its energies for the service of men. Right. Listen, magnifying glasses. It's physics. It's the angle of light. Right? I'm still burning is the angle of light. Redirected through that magnifying glass, through that cut piece of glass or crystal, right? So we're talking about angles of light. we're talking about light. We're talking about light. We're talking about the sacred fire, this fire, right? Fire, the universal deity. Many of the nations of antiquity so revered the fire and light of the sun that they would not permit their altars to be lighted by any other means than the concentration of the sun's rays through a burning glass. In certain of the ancient temples, specially arranged lenses were placed in the ceiling at various angles so that each year at the vernal equinox, the sun at high noon would send its rays through these glasses and light the altar fires which had been specially prepared for this occasion. Okay, yeah. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking about that snake crawling up the pyramid there down there in Belize or somewhere, the Mayan pyramids down in South America, Central America, and how, you know, it looks like it's the shadow of the snake going up the pyramid during, you know, different cycles of the sun. I think it might be the vernal equinox. I'm not sure. But yeah, that came to mind. So yeah, once you know this technology, you can do a lot of neat tricks. And anybody that doesn't know about this technology is mystified. They think you're magic. You're God. You're God. How'd you do that? You see what I'm saying? This is how this stuff can be heavily censored like this. Yep. Like both physical and non-physical. And yeah, just like in Indiana Jones, you know, the light. So, you know, on one hand, you could take these stories, some of these stories, literal. But if it's coming from somebody who doesn't know the technology involved in doing these tricks, they're going to take it literal, something that is just technology. Either way, they're getting the wrong interpretation. The priest considered this process, lighting these fires with the glass and the magnifying glass and focusing the angles of light, the priest considered this process equivalent to the gods having actually lighted the fires themselves, right? In honor of Hu, the supreme deity of the Druids, the people of Britain and Gaul celebrated an annual lighting of fires on what they termed Midsummer's Day. One of the reasons why the mistletoe was sacred to the Druids was because many of the priests believed that this peculiar parasitic plant fell to the earth in the form of lightning bolts, and whenever a tree was struck by lightning, the seed of the mistletoe was placed within its bark. The great length of time the mistletoe remained alive after being cut from the tree had much to do with the veneration showered upon it by the Druids. That this plant was also a powerful medium for the collection of the mysterious cosmic fire circulating through the ethers was discovered by the earlier priests who valued the mistletoe because of its close connection with the mysterious astral light. What happened? We're talking about the mistletoe. It said that this mistletoe was also a powerful medium for the collection of the mysterious cosmic fire circulating through the ethers was discovered by the early priests who valued the mistletoe because of its close connection with the mysterious astral light, which is in reality the astral body of the earth. The Druids were priests and physicians. They were together, curing by magnetism, and charging amulets with their fluidic influence. Their universal remedies were mistletoe and serpent's eggs because these substances attract the astral light in a special manner. The solemnity with which mistletoe was cut down drew upon this plant the popular confidence and rendered its and rendered it powerfully magnetic. The progress of magnetism will someday reveal to us the absorbing properties of mistletoe. We shall then understand the secret of these spongy growths, which draw the unused virtues of plants and become surcharged with tinctures and savors. Mushrooms, truffles, gall on trees, and the different kind of mistletoe will be employed with understanding by a medical science which will be new because it is old. Hey, hey. So we're going back to the old. Have you guys heard of Tartaria? Hold on. Put a put a number 7, the magic number. Put a number 7 in the chat if you've heard of Tartaria. Let's see what's up with that, because he just said that what's coming really is, it's gonna be called new, but that's because it's old. We didn't forgot about these things, magnetism, these different properties. We forgot about them. All right. Okay, I'm still burning. You said this is the most you've interacted on a live. I'm glad you had a good time. I have a good voice. Yeah. I got a radio voice, huh? And I have worked in radio. I've worked in radio. This gives me visualizations and shit while you're talking. I need to reread page 15. Almost had it. Yeah. So we got to process this information. Meditation, get you some tea, read over it again, and just let your thoughts, listen to that still quiet voice within you. It's going to make it make sense out of everything. You're going to have to fight through what you think is true, what you think is true, though. You're going to fight through all that. Put all that aside and let the truth just come through you. You know what I mean? It's hard. We've been so conditioned. We've been so conditioned. So it can be a problem. I was saying in the first live, listen, or in the second one, I think, I was saying, hey, we have a conundrum here. This is a problem because if we deal with history, the colonizer, we know temples were raided, books were taken out of libraries, with the understandings that were written down. A great censorship has occurred. A lot of those books were taken taken to the Vatican, to the basement, right? We know that much. And also, you have secret societies, Freemasons, and what have you, going over those books, going over those writings, trying to understand it. It's another culture's writings. It's another people's writings. They're reading over these things, trying to understand it. And then when they think they got it, they write a book, they publish it, trademark it, right? Propagate like this is their information. You know what I mean? And tell us this is what we need to be doing. And it's all in occultic literature. This is not mainstream stuff. We're not learning this in school. We didn't learn this in school. We're learning this but through strangers on the internet. Why? If y'all believe this to be true, why are you not teaching it? Well, they are teaching it amongst each other. Everybody else, they're using religion as a tool to oppress. And how are they doing that? They use the religion and they tell us, take this literal. This is literal. And that's what they teach. And no matter what church you go to, you're getting the same narrative. This is a literal story. Take this. God himself wrote this. This is literal. But they're being taught and they're teaching each other behind the scenes that these are metaphors and allegories for how the body works. There's plenty of us that have been sick and we in church praying to Jesus for healing. The knowledge of how the body works is being kept from us. That's a problem. I think that's an issue. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we're all together. I'm glad that we could talk about this and kind of like make sense out of it because, even with all the little things that he's trying to, these fairy tale sounding stories he's telling, in the midst of that, I can hear truth, and He could be confused all he wants to be. I'm not confused. All right. The root vibration of the stories are what's important, not details. That's what I picked up when I was a Christian. That's what I picked up about this man Jesus and the stories I was reading. It's about a vibration. So I was in that transition period. 1 foot in believing literal and 1 foot out thinking it was allegory. So, I could talk about this because I've lived this. I know this. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you. It's really the vibration of the stories, not details. Something in that direction. You're teaching. Okay, you gotta go. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Right? Swing through, and swing into the CGH chat. Come get your free book, your free PDF copy of this book. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so um, in the midst of this, he's talking about magnetism, and he tied it to this mistletoe. So we have that going on. He's talking about the secrets, the unseen things behind what the mistletoe is doing. It's absorbing unused properties and virtues of other plants around it or whatever, and it's becoming supercharged, right? With its tinctures will be supercharged, full of nutrients and good medicine to heal the body. Facts. Yeah. Mushrooms, truffles. Yeah, I know. I got some mushrooms, some chaga, and some other mushrooms, Reiki, all that. I got the mushrooms. I've been eating them in chocolate. And yeah. So yeah, we are in 2026. This is the age of Aquarius. Yes. This new information, which is actually old information, yeah, it's not hard to find. It's everywhere. I call it wake up season. We're waking up to these things. And I came by way of holistic health. So I'm into this talk about plants and minerals. It says certain plants, minerals, and animals have been held sacred among all nations of the earth because of their peculiar sensitiveness, right, to the astral fire. The cat, sacred to the city of Bubastis in Egypt, is an example of a peculiarly magnetized animal. Anyone stroking the fur of a domestic cat in a dark room can see the electrical emanations in the form of green phosphorescent light. In the temples of Bast, sacred to the cat goddess, 3 colored cats were viewed with unusual veneration, as was any member of the feline family whose 2 eyes were of different colors. Lotus stone and radium in the mineral kingdom, and various parasitic growths in the plant kingdom are strangely susceptible to the cosmic fire. The magicians of the Middle Ages surrounded themselves with certain animals, such as bats, cats, snakes, and monkeys, because they were able to borrow the power of the astral light from these creatures and appropriate it to their own uses. For this same reason, the Egyptians and certain of the Greeks kept cats in the temples, and serpents were always in evidence at the Oracle of Delphi. Okay? The auric body of a snake is one of the most remarkable sights that the clairvoyant will ever see. And the secrets concealed within its aura demonstrate why the serpent is the symbol of wisdom among so many nations. Yeah. Why is that? I have the symbol of the serpent. I wear it. We know it as the symbol of the Kundalini energy, right? That's the fire within. In my mind, I was waiting for him to say something about the Kundalini. It's a lot of talk going on about physical fires. And then stories. It's just being suggestions that we take some of these stories true. It's confusing. But I'm keeping up. I hope you're keeping up. That Christianity has preserved, in part at least, the primitive fire worship of antiquity is evident in many of its symbols and rituals. All right. The incense burner, so often used in Christian churches, is a pagan symbol relating to the regeneration of the human soul. The incense burner represents the body of man. The incense within the burner, made from the extracted essences of various plants, represents the life forces within the body of man. The flaming spark burning in the midst of the incense is emblematic of the spiritual germ concealed in the midst of the material organism of man. This spiritual spark is an infinitesimal part of the divine plane, a real small part, increment of the divine flame. The great fire of the universe, from whose flaming heart the altar fires of all his creatures have been lighted. So, yeah, we all got a little spark of God within us, right? A spark of fire within us, right? Okay? So, though we're all individuals, together there's wholeness. Yes. Wholeness and balance, tribe. Let's see. As the spark of life gradually consumes the incense, so the spiritual nature of man, through the process of regeneration, gradually consumes all the gross elements of the body, transmuting them into soul power, symbolized by the smoke. Although smoke is actually a dense and physical substance, yet light enough to rise in clouds, so the soul is actually a physical element, but through purification and the fire of aspiration, it has taken upon itself the nature of intangible atmosphere. Though composed of the substance of earth, it becomes light enough to rise as a fragrant odor into the presence of deity. Okay? So, a lot of mystical talk, but metaphysical understandings. We're just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. While some authorities have held that the form of the cross was derived from the ancient Egyptian instrument called the nilometer and used for measuring the inundations of the Nile, others hold the opinion that the symbol had its origin in the two crossed sticks used by primitive peoples to generate fire by friction. We're talking about the cross. Some people say that the cross in Christianity came from the ancient Egyptian instrument called the nilometer, which was used to measure the inundations of the Nile. Others say that this cross symbol that we got in Christianity had its origin in the two crossed sticks used by primitive people to generate fire by friction. I have a star on my necklace. There's not a cross per se, but I think that we're talking about the same thing because it's a 5-pointed star, 4 elements: earth, wind, air, fire, and then the 5th point would be the spirit, right? So when I think of that, I could say the cross, before it was 2 cross sticks, primitive peoples, I don't know. But it could also, another opinion could be that the cross is symbolizing the 4 points I just made, or the 4 main elements, right? Earth, air, fire, water. 4 points. It's cross. And that's what makes up our reality, right? These four core elements: earth, air, fire, water. Now, of course, in the beginning of this book, he said fire was the element that people, that's that one element they put above the other elements. Do you think fire, when you start thinking about the main four core elements, earth, air, fire, water, what would you put at the top of that list? Fire or water or air? What would you put at the top if there had to be a hierarchy? Do you think any one of these elements is more important than the other? Which element came first before any of the others? Water is H2O, hydrogen and two oxygens. So water and air is oxygen, water is 2 parts hydrogen and then oxygen. And then fire, which element do you think came first? Fire, water, air, or earth? Let me know in the comment section. Leave me a comment, let me know which one you think was first. And you know, talk about it. Why do you think that element was first? Which element do you think is more archaic, if you will? So yeah, he said, you know, this symbol of the cross could come from, you know, the two sticks that primitive peoples used to generate fire. Okay. It says the use of the bell towers and campanelas in the construction of the cathedrals of medieval Christianity. Also, the more familiar conventionalized church steeple may be traced to the fire obelisks of Egypt, which were placed in front of the temples sacred to the superior deities. Fire obelisks. All pyramids are symbols of fire. Okay. While the heart used on Valentine's is merely an inverted candle flame. I can confirm that the word pyramid is a symbol for inner fire. I could confirm that. Did you know that the heart used on Valentine's Day, on the little Valentine's Day cards and all that, did you know that it's an inverted candle flame? The maypole had its origin in similar antiquity, where it is both a phallic symbol and an emblem of cosmic fire. The prevailing custom of having churches face the east is, of course, further evidence of the survival of sun worship. Practically the only branch of the human race that does not observe this rule is the Arabic. The Mohammedans face their mosques towards Mecca, but still have their appointed hours of prayer governed by the sun. The rose windows and ivy-covered walls are survivals of pagandom. For ivy was sacred to Bacchus because of the shape of its leaf, and this plant was always allowed to trail over the walls of the temple sacred to the Greek solar deity. The golden ornaments upon the altars of Christian churches should remind the philosophical observer that gold is the sacred metal of the sun, because, according to alchemists, the sun ray itself crystallized in the earth, thus forming this precious metal, gold, right? Which, incidentally, is still being made. He said gold is still being made. This book was written in like 1924. I think that's the earliest date I heard so far. So, anywho, the candles so often seen adorning the altars and most frequently appearing in an uneven number are a reminder that the uneven numbers are sacred to the sun. When 3 candles are used, they symbolize the 3 aspects of the sun: sunrise, noon, and sunset, and are thus emblematic of the Trinity. When 7 are used, right, Like your menorah. I'm a life number 7. So, every time I hear this number 7, I'm tuning in, baby. When 7 are used, they represent the planetary angels called by the Jews Elohim, whose numerical and Kabbalistic values are also 7. When the even numbers, 12 or 24, appear, they represent the signs of the zodiac and the spirits of the hour of the day, called by the Persians the Izids. Okay. So when 12 or 24 appear, they represent the signs of the zodiac and the spirits of the hour of the day. Like, when you're reading different magic books and whatnot, they say there's a different spirit ruling each hour of the day. We could read about that too one day in this book club if you want to read that stuff. I got a book, a great book on plants. A great book on plants. When only one light is shown, it is the emblem of the Supreme Invisible Father, who is one. And the little red lamp, ever burning over the altar, is an offering to the demiurge, right? Jehovah, or the Lord Builder of Forms. What oil is to the flame, blood is to the spirit of man. Therefore, oil is often used in anointing, for it is a fluid sacred to the solar power. Because oil contains the life of the sun, it is used in large quantities in far northern lands where it is necessary to generate an abundance of body heat. Hence, the proclivity of the Eskimos for eating tallow candles and whale oil. Blood. What's up with plasma, though? We got blood and plasma? People are drinking blood. I don't know, bro. And he said oil is to the flame like blood is to the spirit of man. Oil is used in anointing for its fluid, sacred to the solar power. This is why Eskimos eat a lot of candles and whale oil. Because oil contains the life of the sun. The actual word Christ is itself sufficient proof that fire and the worship of fire are the two most essential elements of the Christian faith. The rays of light pouring from the sun were viewed by the ancients as the blood of the celestial lamb, which, at the vernal equinox, died for the sins of the world and redeemed all humanity through its blood rays. Doom, doom, doom. I need a sound effect, huh? I need sound effects, but this live is going so well. We're not having no problems. I think we solved our problem for now. I have an Ethernet cable coming tomorrow, so we're going to double down on it. We're not going to have no problems. So we'll be able to go live. I think we need to have lives for this book club. So, yeah, but maybe I can incorporate, after I get this Ethernet plugged in tomorrow, I can get some sound effects going, right? As of now, this is what we got going. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, right? Hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss any upcoming lives. I'm going to say that for sure, because I'm finna get crazy with it. I'm finna go live every day. The mystery schools of ancient Egypt taught that the blood was the vehicle of the consciousness. Okay, because again, I said, well, what about plasma? Because plasma is more fire than blood, right? We talking about fire, light, fire, and we just got a bunch of plasma places all around the hoods in every city in America, right? So what's the difference between plasma and blood? You guys, anybody know? We're talking about fire, right? You hear the fire crackling in the background? We're talking about fire. Fire, the universal deity. And I'm asking, since we're talking about blood, what about plasma? But okay, the mystery schools of ancient Egypt taught that the plasma was the vehicle of, I don't know. Blood was the vehicle of the consciousness. The spirit of man traveled through the bloodstream and therefore was not actually located in any one part of the compound organism. It moved through the body with the rapidity of thought, so that consciousness of self, cognition of externals, and sense perception could be localized in any part of the body by the exercise of the willpower. The initiates viewed the blood as a mysterious liquid, somewhat gaseous in nature, which served as a medium for manifesting the fire of man's spiritual nature. This fire, I don't know, plasma, we want to know what's up with plasma. He's saying blood. Did they know about plasma in 1924 when he wrote this, though? That's what I'm saying. While he's identifying this sacred fire, we in 2026 got plasmas buildings in the hood in every city. So you heard of plasma. And it's like they drawing blood. Is the plasma in the blood? What's going on? Is that the fire in the blood? Is that why they want our plasma? They're paying us to take our plasma? Man. This fire coursing through the system animated and vitalized all parts of the form, thus keeping the spiritual nature in touch with all of its physical extremities. The mystics looked upon the liver as the source of the heat and power in the blood. Hence, it is significant that the spear of the centurion should pierce the liver of Christ, and the vulture should be placed over the liver of Prometheus to torment him throughout the ages. Okay. I'm like, yeah, get to it. Okay. That's interesting. Because he's saying these are all symbolisms. This is not to be taken literally, he said. This is allegories. So the mystics looked upon the liver as the source of the heat and power in the blood. And that's what he says. And here it is, and therefore it's significant that the spear of the centurion should pierce the liver of Christ, and the vulture should be placed over the liver of Prometheus to torment him throughout the ages. Hold on one second, guys. I got a phone call. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, you guys, let me step away for a minute. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It'll be about 2-3 minutes. I'll be right back. I don't want to play nothing in between time because I don't want the stream to get all funny. So I got a video I can play. As always, I'm not going to do it, but what I will do is put this thumbnail up. And I'll step away. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. I am back. I had to handle something for a minute there, but I am back. We're gonna get back to this book we're reading, right? Hold on, let me switch the thing back. Right? Okay. We were reading about this fire. We saw about the liver, and we see why it's significant. It's a significant symbol, right? Symbolism, allegory. It's significant that Christ was pierced in the liver, and that this eagle or bird, this vulture, was there pecking at the liver of Prometheus in the mythology, right? For ages, years, thousands of years and stuff. So we know it's not a literal story. We know this is an allegory. It's gotta be. So what does it mean though? We're talking about the liver. Interesting stuff. Occultism teaches that it is the presence of the liver which distinguishes the animal from the plant, and that mystically certain small creatures having power of motion but no liver are actually plants in spiritual consciousness. What? Some small creatures aren't actually animals, they're plants. Because they don't have a liver, even though they have power of motion. They're moving. Certain small creatures don't have livers? As I said, this was in 1924. Science, it's been over 100 years later. We're 100 years later. Science is definitely technology. We definitely know more than we did then. So I wonder what of this is outdated and what's not. Excuse me. The liver is under the control of the planet Mars, which is the dynamo of this solar system, and which sends a red animating ray to all the evolving creatures within this solar scheme. Is there an invisible red light coming from Mars? The philosophers, I'm just moving fast now, huh? The philosophers taught that the planet Mars, under the control of its regent, Samuel, was the transmuted sin body of the solar logos, which originally had been the dweller on the threshold of the divine creature, whose energies are now distributed through the fire of the sun. Mars, let's sum that up. The philosophers taught that the planet Mars was under the control of Samuel. And this planet Mars was the transmuted sin body of the solar logos. Logos is word, right? Solar word, which originally had been the dweller on the threshold of the divine creature, whose energies are now being distributed through the fire of the sun. Samuel, incidentally, was the fiery father of Cain, through whom a part of humanity has received the flame of aspiration and are thus separate from the sons of Seth, whose father was Jehovah. He's saying some people have a soul and some don't. And hence we call some people sons of Cain and some the sons of Seth. Is this what he's saying to me? All right. I think that would be taking the Bible literally. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's confused. Is he confused? Has he thought this all the way through? Let's keep reading. There is no Cain and there is no Seth. These aren't real, literal people. So who's this Samuel and who's this Jehovah? Are we talking about negative thoughts and high vibrational thoughts? Are we talking about negative pole and positive pole? No, this is the book club. We're fresh off of reading about human design and the polarities within each of the frequencies and whatnot. If you've never heard of human design, I encourage you to go back into the, videos and go check out the introduction to it to hear more about it. Because I'm not going to get into that now. But if you had been here for reading that, and so we're here now, for me, since he's saying this is coded symbolic language, he's saying these are not literal people. So now you're telling me Cain is the son of Samuel and Seth is the son of Jehovah, but all while telling me this is not literal people. So then I can have no choice but to say, well, what is Cain and what is Seth, right? Earlier he said Jehovah was the sun, the outer, this because the sun is three parts, one part visible, two-thirds parts invisible. So he's saying this visible part of the sun is synonymous with Jehovah and Shakti or something. So these are just words for the sun. Jehovah is just words for the sun. Seth is the son of Jehovah, and Jehovah is just the sun. So who is Seth? If Jehovah's code word for the sun. And who is Cain? And who is Samuel? The Egyptians considered the juice of the grape to be more nearly like human blood than any other substance. In fact, they believed that the grape secured its life from the blood of the dead, who had been buried in the earth. Concerning this subject, Plutarch writes as follows, quote, "The priests of the sun and Heliopolis never carry any wine into their temples, ... And if they made use of it at any time in their libations to the gods, it was not because they looked upon it as in its own nature acceptable to them, but they poured it upon their altars as the blood of those enemies who formerly had fought against them. For they look upon the vine to have first sprung out of the earth after it was fattened with the carcasses of those who fell in the wars against the gods. And this, say they, is the reason why drinking its juice in great quantities makes men mad, and besides themselves, filling them, as it were, with the blood of their own ancestors, Isis and Osiris, who are not people. It said earlier in the book, these are symbols and allegories of elements, personification of elements. Come on. I don't know. I just wish he'd just make it clear when he's talking about allegories and when he's talking about, they think we talking, facts here. They think we talking about literal, but actually it's an allegory. I wish he'd make that more clear while we're reading it. Because without that, he's just flip-flopping back and forth between the two. And we got to keep reminding ourselves that none of these names and characters are not real people. So they themselves are code. For what? What's the code? What is Isis and Osiris? The magicians of the Middle Ages, more magi's, were aware of the fact that they, by their occult powers, could control any person by first securing a small amount of his blood. If a glass of water be left overnight in a room where someone's sleeping, the next morning the water will be impregnated to such an extent with the psychic radiations of that person that anyone understanding the modus operandi may find contained in the water a complete record of the life and character of the one who occupied the room. These records are transmitted and preserved in a subtile substance which the medieval transcendentalists called the astrolight, an ever-present, all-pervading, fiery essence, which preserves intact the record of everything transpiring in any part of nature. Well, they learned that much, huh? Akashic records. Yeah. So the Magi, by their occult powers, could control any person by first securing a small amount of blood. Haven't we all been born pretty much in hospitals? Did they prick our feet when we're in the hospital? They get our blood. They all got our blood. Huh? We trying to figure out what's going on with the world, and we're like, is it some magic? Is it covert technology? What's happening? Well, from the jump, strangers have our blood. Let's start there. What are they doing with the blood? I don't know. But yeah, I've heard about this, speaking into your water. I've watched water experiments. Excuse me, let me turn this camera back on. By that one guy, Makishi, something with an M. Makoshi. I don't know, but he did a water experiment. I could pull it up, but I'll leave that to you to do. Type in water experiments on YouTube. So I've seen the different water frozen in time. I've seen, speaking positive words to water, speaking negative words to the water, and how the water forms its own from that frequency, from that energy, and from the energy given it, it'll create ugly looking water splotches and stuff. Not splotches, like the experiment is just dropping water. No. Water on a test tube. Water that you speak into, and then finally you take this water and put it on the what's it called? The little strip, and put it under the microscope to see it. That's what I'm talking about. And different photographs taken of snowflakes or water frozen into crystals, snowflake looking type crystals, different shapes. The more negative words, the more uglier it looks. Distorted, I would say, the more distorted. Yeah. Versus the high vibrational words being spoken to the water, and then you take that water and freeze it and look at it under the microscope, and it has sacred geometry. There's harmonizing there. There's harmony. There's wholeness. There's balance there. So I get what he's saying when he's talking about the water, speaking into the water. Akashic records. I've heard these things. We've heard that water has memory. Right? Have you heard that water has memory? Water can remember. So water or something like that was used to make DVDs, Blu-rays, and stuff like that, because you can hold memory on it. That's the technology. That's the secret behind, that's the magic behind Blu-rays and DVD technology. All right, waters, crystals, all of that. So, yeah, I see what he's saying, or what he's saying. I hear him. The streaming rays pouring from the face of the sun have caused it to be associated with the lion because of the shaggy mane of this king of beasts, right? The golden-haired savior gods of many nations, subtly signified by their uncut locks, the solar radiations. So he says, the sun was the king of heaven, and earthly rulers desiring to advertise their terrestrial power delighted to be considered as little suns, little vassals being viewed as planets, basking in the glory of the central light. Planets being viewed as planets. The highest of each kingdom in nature was also considered symbolic of the sun. Hence, the scarab beetle being the most intelligent of all insects, the eagle, the most aspiring of all birds, and the lion, the strongest of all beasts, were considered fitly symbolic of the solar disk. Thus, the Mongols chose the lion for their standard, while Caesar and Napoleon used the eagle to symbolize their dignity. The crowns of kings were originally bands of gold with radiating points to symbolize that they partook in part of the divine power vested in the sun. So they say. As time went on, the crown was conventionalized. Its surface was encrusted with jewels. A number of its points were changed, and its evident resemblance to the sun was lost. But when you look at this word corona, crown, corona, sun. The halo, so often seen pictured around the heads of both Christian and pagan deities and saints, is also emblematic of the sun power. According to the mysteries, there comes a time in the spiritual unfoldment of man when the mysterious oil, which has been moving slowly up the spinal column, finally enters the third ventricle of the brain, where it becomes beautifully golden in color and radiates in all directions. This radiance is so great that it cannot be limited by the skull, and it pours out from the head, especially from the back of the neck, where the uppermost vertebrae of the spine articulates with the condyles of the occipital bone. It is this light pouring out in a fan-shaped aura around the posterior part of the head that has given rise to the halos of saints and the nimbus so often used in religious art. This light signifies human regeneration, and it forms part of the auric bodies of man. So this oil is this liquid that's going up slowly from our spinal column, going finally entering up to the brain, creating a unbelievably beautiful radiance, right? The radiance so great it can't be limited by the skull. It pours out from the head, creating this aura. And this, he says, is what gave rise to the halos of saints and the nimbus that's so often used in religious art. So the Kundalini rising, and then Christ consciousness or a lightning going on. Which a light is like a pouring out of a light, and it forms part of the aura. These auras have greatly influenced the color and form of the garments used in religious ceremonies, right? The robe of blue and gold, which Albert Pike speaks of, blue and gold, and the vestments of the different degrees and the hierarchies of all religious orders are symbolic of these invisible emanating forms which surround man, their colors changing with his every thought and feeling. So we're talking about the Taurus field, the aura. By means of these auras, the priests and philosophers of the ancient world chose those disciples who would do credit to their teachings. The robes of glory of the high priest of Israel are all symbolic, as Josephus, with his Oriental instruction, has shrewdly noted. The plain white linen symbolizes the purified physical nature. The many-colored garments represent the astral body. The blue raiment, the spiritual nature, and the violet, the mind, for it is a color made up of two shades, one spiritual and the other material. In the Egyptian mysteries, it was not uncommon to show the rays of the sun ending in human hands. One of the chairs, recently found in the tomb of King Tut, showed a sun with its rays ending in human hands. Tutankhamun, tomb of Tutankhamun. Among the ancients, the hand was the symbol of wisdom because it was used to raise the fallen. And no man is so low in his estate as an ignorant man. The physical proclivities of the sun and its water drawing power were used to symbolize a spiritual process in which the divine nature of man was raised or illuminated and drawn upward by the heat of the sun, whose emanating rays spread the threefold spiritual power as love, wisdom, and truth. I mean, earlier I said a word that could have been risky, talking about that thing that went on when everything got shut down. That happened. We actually lived through that. Can you believe it? Everything shut down. A lot of people are gone now. That's sad. And then I said how that word relates to the sun. Ultimately, I think, when we talk about that situation and any to come, I think keeping in mind what he just said about this sun, the rays coming from the sun, and the sun just being a mediator. Remember, he said that earlier. Something, an intelligence, God, whatever, on the other side of the sun is sending signals, sending data through the sun to us to raise the vibration, right? He said, drawn upward by the heat of the sun, these emanating rays spread the threefold spiritual power as love, wisdom, and truth. So some kind of upgrade or some kind of something was sent to us to raise the vibration closer to love, wisdom, and truth. And some people's bodies, it affected everybody. It affected us. And I feel like the more it affected you, the more toxic or heavy your body was. It wasn't light as a feather, if you will. Obviously. And so it had a hard time dealing with that transition. And so that's what I think. That's what I thought from the beginning, before it had a name. No, not before it had a name. But after they named it, it was like, well, why'd you name it that? Then they renamed it. So I saw the connections. And I hear what he's saying here about God or whatever have you on the other side of the sun being like a way station to transmit these signals. And so any signal that is to come or will come is coming kind of directly being beamed from the sun, coming from somewhere else. Now, I'm hearing in other writings and stuff, the Dogons say that this is coming from Sirius, right? So all I'm saying is that I've read other things to confirm that, and I've lived life enough to see. I witnessed, I lived through these events. So I was, and, that's what I have to say about that. At least I'd be at more risk of being kicked off, right? So I think we're done for the night. Today, the plan was to just read the introduction, do a little research on what the book was about. We went to Amazon, read the book synopsis. We read a few reviews. We also cut it off when it seemed like some of the reviews were about to be spoiler alerts. We said we don't want to read no spoiler alerts. So we looked up the author, Manly P. Hall. We said that's part of it. We need to look up who this author is. Who's that guy? So we did a little cursory research. We went to a Wikipedia. That's light work. And the nonprofit philosophical society that he started, we looked at it. We found out he's a Freemason, a 33rd degree Scottish Freemason at that. So we found out some things, and then we said, hey, well, let's look up Melchizedek. You know what I mean? Who's that? For anybody who ain't never even heard the word. Those that don't know about this word. Christians or not, Muslims or not, Jewish or not. Some people don't, they're not really reading. You know what I mean? So maybe though they've been a lifelong member of this religious order, maybe they didn't know. Right? Maybe they had never heard of Melchizedek. So we looked that up. All this was the pregame. Then we jumped into the introduction and read that. I guess the problem came in with some words being said. So we had a hard time getting through that intro before we even got to the introduction. Then we read the introduction, and things were getting smooth, and we dropped off for a little bit. It got a little choppy for a second, but we said we're just going to keep reading. We're going to keep reading past the introduction. We got into section 1, part 1, and there's only 3 parts to the book, right? Just 3 parts. So we'll read part 2 and maybe part 3 next time. It's only 54 pages in this book. We're on page 24, 23. So we only got... I gotta say that if you're listening to me outside of YouTube, and there are people that are, somebody came in our chat room the other day and said they found out on a podcast. So we're streaming on Spotify, we stream on Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, a lot of different places, podcast places, Podbean, I think Bean, a lot of different places. If you're listening on one of the podcasts, you're actually late, because I'm live on YouTube right now. I'm not going to upload this to the podcast till tomorrow. So if you were subscribed to me on YouTube, got the notifications going, you could actually tune in and be early listening to this reading of this book. So I hope you do join us here on YouTube and subscribe. This is kind of my home base. I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location out to the world through YouTube, right? And we're going to keep doing this. I think we worked out the kinks. We haven't had any problems, have we, guys? So I think we worked it out. I want to make sure that you let everybody know about this video that we got going on, this book club. Make sure you like, share the video, all those things. And until we meet up next time, I hope you guys have a great day, a great weekend, and wholeness and balance.